Hello and welcome to this episode, which I am quite passionate about because I'm British, but Michael is more backseating. So,
Yep, that's me. I'll just listen in awe as he gets more and more angry.
yeah, when I stop fucking breaking my keyboard on my knee, to stop the recording. But okay, this quite pissed me off to be honest. Am I salty about this because they put it to the People March. They're essentially Remainers pushing for yet another vote on Brexit. We've already had the vote. They don't care. They literally do not care about the vote, and they just want a new one. It's anti-democratic to the core. There's just, oh yeah, you don't like an outcome, or you can just get another one. It's so stupid and redundant. I'm
Well,
I'm a
playing
rant.
devil's advocate a bit here, would you not say that having another referendum now that people know more about the issue is purely democratic as it gets, really?
It
Because
invalidates
they're
the
putting it to the
previous one
people.
though. It invalidates the previous one. Like breaks the essentially makes any referendum we have in the future less valid. It essentially reduces the democratic mandate of any decision get handed to the public. Almost makes it completely irrelevant
Well,
if we can just have
would you
another
not
vote on it.
say though that it's relevant that the situation has changed? People know now can be more informed in their vote. Uh,
Not necessarily, given that. Let's be honest. There was a ton of debate around Brexit when it was first aired. There was tons of debate. There was tons of talking points. There's a lot of information revealed. If anything, I think Brexit has a stronger case now, given okay, like there was a debate between Nigel Farage and some other British politician. I think maybe Ed Miliband or something. I'm not too sure. But essentially, Nigel Farage put forward the point that the European army was going to be formed by the European Union, and that it was leaning more towards a United States of Europe rather than as it is now. It's not maintaining the status quo. And he was essentially called a conspiracy theorist and a madman for believing in this. And what happens months later, after the Brexit referendum? There's a massive push by Juncker, various other European officials, and Angela Merkel and Macron to essentially secure a European army. It's essentially what's happened since the referendum. Many things which were thought outside of the pale have come to the forefront as probable outcomes for the future of the European Union. More
But then,
integration,
if you're saying that people are even better informed now, right? You
yes.
know, the stuff has come to the forefront. Would you not say it makes it even more relevant for another vote, right?
It's not necessarily that. It's not that, okay. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not scared of losing the vote. I'm more against the disruption to our process. The fact that you can just
Right.
easily just that vote doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. We can just have another one. It just reduces like I've said, it makes any democratic mandate so much weaker. It's
Well,
just
would
too
you
damaging.
say, and this is I'm playing very much playing devil's advocate here, but would you say that the tiny majority that Brexit received, right, for such a large decision, is a democratic mandate at all, or is it not tyranny of the very very slight majority?
The whole point is that everyone consented to the referendum after it was voted on by MPs. Everyone who voted implicitly consented to the referendum. There
I
wasn't there wasn't
don't
there
think that's
wasn't
true.
there wasn't a mass protest stating we are not going to vote on this. Everyone voted. Everyone consented to what would be the outcome. Everyone got behind it. Everyone made their point,
Well, I think that's a slightly flawed.
and it just so happens that the Brexit perspective convinced more people than the Remain perspective, and that's why it won.
Right, but by a very, very small margin is kind of what I'm saying, right? So do you think it's reasonable for a state to make such massive, far-reaching decisions for many years to come on what was the majority, a few percent?
It was, I think, about 1%, but that's a few hundred thousand people. So,
Right, but it's still a very, very small margin, you got to admit.
so then you don't carry out any action on the democratic mandate. You just ignore it. You just move on. You stay in the European Union, even though the vote to leave won. You see what problems that causes?
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. Or
Yeah,
I tend to agree. Maybe
yeah.
not as vigorously as you, but I think so. Your perspective is that Brexit should just happen right now, no more fucking around,
I think
and
I think both Parliament, the government, and the European Union have had more than enough time to come to an agreement. And for one, Parliament is too incompetent to come to a deal. Two, the European Union is too malicious to come to a deal. And we should just get it over with, to be honest. because like Theresa May said previously, a no deal is better than a bad deal. And what she's gotten us is a bad deal, and now no deal's been voted off the table by Parliament, which is quite. Ooh, I'm not happy about that, to be honest. But
Well, but the no deal got voted away.
yeah, no deal got voted away, so they're trying to avoid at all costs, by all means necessary, essentially. And this is through this
Right.
is why they're trying to get an extension now for the deal, which will okay. I'm gonna go off topic here, relatively off topic. Is that they voted down no deal. They want an extension with the EU to organise a new deal, despite them already voting down Theresa May's deal, which the EU has said is unnegotiable and is already the final deal. Do you see the problem in that?
Well, yeah. Well, it's just gonna keep getting delayed exponentially.
Yeah,
It seems
until
to me.
it's gonna keep getting delayed, which is it's just redundant. There's literally no reason for the extension unless you want to try and abort Brexit, essentially. You say, oh, it's untenable. Look at all the damage it's gonna cause. Oh wow, all the fear, all the world's gonna be destroyed. I personally, this is very conspiratorial, but I see it as essentially a plot to perhaps destroy the talks, destroy any deal possible, take all the options off the table except for remaining.
Right. So you perceive that the government is trying to make it as unattractive as possible, then have another referendum and then say, look, the people don't want Brexit.
Possibly, possibly. Although I still
I
think
think that's quite
Brexit
a
will win.
quite a reasonable perspective, to be honest. Like, even as someone who's not as opinionated on,
Hmm.
I think that the government clearly did not expect Brexit to go through and are now looking for every possible angle they can to prevent it from occurring.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems is that despite if you look at constituencies that voted for leave versus constituencies that voted for remain, you see it's almost a two-thirds majority for leaving. Yet when you
Right.
look at the political predispositions of the politicians that were voted in, you see that it's essentially flipped. It's 2-1 in favor of remain. And I think that honestly causes quite quite a differential in opinion between the actual voters and their representatives. And I think that's
Well,
honestly
yeah.
caused the problems we see
I
today.
think it's no secret that people's representatives aren't actually representing them, and like the constituency wise.
Mm,
Right. I think that we can both agree on that.
yeah. And another problem is this, they have a large have a large protest and a march for another referendum, but we've already in effect had numerous. We've had the original referendum, we've had the general election, and we've had the MPs vote on the Brexit deal to actually enact Article 50. And then they want another one. When does it stop? Just when
Well, I guess
ha,
it stops when they get the result they want.
exactly. And this on another tangent actually, lots of tangents today. The European Union actually has a history of this, of essentially making sure that more votes happen so that they get the result that they want. It happened with the Lisbon Treaty with Ireland, I think. They voted once, outcome wasn't liked, voted again, voted in their favour. It's quite a sleazy method of getting the outcome that you want. And I think it's sort of being used by it's hard to explain, but I think the I think the people who are arguing for this, the Remainers, are essentially using the same ethos as the European Union. Just push it through as much as we can, brute force it, as many votes as is needed to get the outcome that we want. And it's quite antithetical to what I would say democracy is, in which you have a vote and you respect the outcome, no matter what it is.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I think it's a way of avoiding the democratic process. Ironically, by pretending you're democratic.
Yeah.
Right. Um.
There's also
So.
another point to be made actually is you've got this march which has a million so people, but it's essentially meaningless. We already know a large portion of the population want to remain, so they're marching. Yeah, and we already know that lots of you are unhappy with the result. So what does this do? Are we just gonna ignore all the other people, all the other majority people who voted for Brexit in favor of a small march? Like, what do they hope to achieve? Just force the Parliament into.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue any protest is just to try and make your opinions seen and heard. But I do understand your perspective that they're becoming a very vocal minority, I think.
Mm,
Or whether they are a minority or not, I'm not sure, because we don't know anymore, because there's not been a second referendum. But whatever they are, they're very, very vocal. And it makes it seem perhaps like there's more of them than there are.
definitely. Yeah.
More people who want to remain, that is.
Okay, I've had my spiel over and done with.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we kind of got into this issue a little bit, and you almost convinced me because before we had this discussion, I was kind of on the side of, well, what's wrong with another, right? But
So
but
much
I think
devil's
yeah,
advocate.
yeah. Well, I was devil's advocating before I became red pilled, I guess. Okay.
Get
Well,
rid of it.
yeah. Well, thanks very much, everyone, for listening to Jacob's ranting, and this podcast, this episode, and have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with me, and farewell.